I could feel myself quickly being enveloped by the comfort of the sofa. I'll rest for just 20, maybe 30 minutes, and I'll switch with Kelly. With that thought, I drifted off to sleep. Instead of just 30 minutes, I ended up sleeping for nearly an hour. This is my life right now. My body is exhausted, but I don't consider myself unhappy. Though Tom doesn't help much, he works hard. Kelly is dutiful, and Grandma is a wonderful person. I had no intention of complaining. I didn't think this lifestyle would last forever. We could all feel that Grandma's time was limited, so I wanted to focus on caregiving to avoid any regrets. Then one day Tom came home and said, "Hey, I got this from work," handing me a travel voucher. "Oh, what's this? Did you do something nice?" "I got it from my boss. It's probably his way of telling me to take a break, even though he knows I'm always busy." "But that's great. Let's go." "Yay, let's go somewhere nice," Kelly exclaimed upon hearing the conversation. When I suggested it, Tom sadly shook his head. "I can't go, but it's a shame to waste it, so you and Kelly go. You should take a break too." I was surprised to hear him say such kind words, as he had never done so before. Of course, I wanted to go on the trip, but I had concerns. "That's kind of you, but what about Grandma's care?" "I'll take care of that. I should be the one looking after Mom anyway." Kelly and I exchanged glances. Unexpectedly, I was happy that Tom had offered to help, but I was unsure if it was a good idea to leave him in charge of caregiving since he wasn't used to it. Kelly seemed to feel the same way and asked worriedly, "Hey, is Dad really okay with this? He hasn't done much caregiving before." Tom seemed a bit offended and retorted, "Don't underestimate me. I can handle it. Hey, maybe we should just cancel the trip. It would be tough if something happened. You guys are being too noisy." Suddenly, Tom started to get angry. "What's the problem? I'm trying to be nice here and you don't trust me. You think I'm unreliable." "What do you say?" "I'm sorry. I didn't mean it like that. We didn't mean any harm." Seeing us frightened, Tom smiled with satisfaction. "That's right. You don't need to worry. It's just 1 night and 2 days. I'm not asking you to travel around the world." With that said, we couldn't respond. "Well then, since it's a rare opportunity, should we go?" I was somewhat uneasy about Tom's insistence on us going on the trip, but not wanting to upset him further, we decided to go. The destination was a tourist spot not too far from here, and we managed to stay at a decent inn. I was worried about Tom's mom, but Tom was no child. He should manage. If something happened, he would contact us, and there were ways to return quickly. Moreover, a cold wave had brought heavy snow, turning the surroundings into a beautiful snowy landscape. Kelly seemed to enjoy it, but being the serious girl she is, brought her study materials to the room. We strolled through the quaint snow-covered countryside town, enjoyed the pleasant hot springs, and savored delicious meals. After 2 days, we were fully refreshed and bought souvenirs for Tom and his mother before heading home. We could have gone straight to our house, but since Tom's family home was closer, I decided to deliver the souvenirs to his mother first. I had informed Tom in advance that we were heading to his family home, but upon arrival there was no sign of anyone around. It was getting dark and not a single light was on, making everything eerily quiet. Something seems off. Indeed, I wonder what happened. Be careful where you step. We tread carefully through the snow, making sure not to slip on the ice, and opened the sliding door to the family home. Inside, there was a sense that people had been there just before, but it was dark and items were scattered all over the floor. It looked as if someone had hurriedly left the place. "Mom, this is kinda scary," Kelly said. "Do you want to wait outside?" However, Kelly shook her head, so we cautiously entered the house. "Hello, it's Tabitha." I called out loudly, but no response came. We continued carefully toward the back and opened the room where Tom's mom was likely sleeping. It was chillingly cold inside, as if it wasn't even indoors. Looking further in, we saw Tom's mom wrapped in a blanket with a pale face. "This can't be happening, Mom." I rushed to her side to speak to her, but her body was ice cold. Yet there was a faint breath and she groaned in response to my call. "Kelly, call an ambulance," I shouted to Kelly, who stood frozen at the door. Looking around the room, I noticed that the window was inexplicably open. No wonder it was so cold. I hurriedly closed the window, turned on the heat, and wrapped my clothing around Tom's mom. "Mom, she'll be okay. Help is on the way." Just then, I faintly heard the sound of sirens. What? They're already here? Can't be. But as the siren sounds grew louder, they stopped right in front of the family home. Emergency responders rushed in through the entrance. "Mrs. Johnson, Dorothy Johnson, are you okay?" Hearing that, I breathed a sigh of relief. "Oh, thank goodness, she's here. Please come quick." Hearing my voice, the responders came to the room immediately and began administering care to Tom's mom. "Oh, this is hypothermia. We need to transport her immediately. And you are?" "I'm Tabitha Johnson, her daughter-in-law. And who is this?" "This is my daughter Kelly." "I see. So will your daughter accompany you? Is that all right?" The paramedics seemed to be looking at me with a hint of suspicion. I suddenly had a bad feeling. "That's fine, but why?" "I'll explain that in a moment." A man in a suit entered the room and showed me a police badge. "Police? What's this about?" "We'll be transporting her now, so we'll leave the rest to you." "Mom," Kelly looked at me with a face about to cry. I was confused but tried to stay strong. "It's okay, Kelly, I'm fine. You should stay with your grandmother." Kelly nodded and then boarded the ambulance heading to the hospital. "So, Mrs. Johnson, could you please come with us to the station?" Hearing "to the station," my heart skipped a beat. I never imagined I'd hear such a line outside of a drama, especially when I hadn't done anything wrong. Wait a minute. Why is this happening? Your husband Tom made a report. He said his wife was trying to harm his mother. When we arrived, we found the situation. Hearing his explanation, I felt the ground sway beneath me. If anything happened to my mother-in-law, could I be considered a suspect? That's not true. It's a misunderstanding. "Please investigate properly," I pleaded desperately, but he responded wearily. "That's why we want you to come to the station." Without any ability to resist, I was placed in a police car. After living honestly for over 40 years, such an unforeseen event was unfolding. Wrapped in despair, I looked outside to see the snow-covered ground lit colorfully by traffic lights. Seeing children playing joyfully in the snow, I couldn't help but shed tears. The snow that seemed so delightful during our hot spring trip now felt unbearably cold. As I started thinking about the future, I suddenly became scared. I could visualize news footage of me being covered. The person you see on the screen now is the suspect, Tabby Johnson. Miss Johnson is suspected of attempting to harm her bedridden mother-in-law and was arrested yesterday evening. What would become of Kelly if that happened to me? Being branded as the criminal's daughter could ruin not only her exams but her entire future. But I am innocent. Thinking this, my heart rate suddenly increased and I felt an urge to flee right there and then. I felt like I was going insane but desperately tried to control myself. Act impulsively now would only confirm their suspicions. A thorough investigation should quickly reveal my innocence. So for now I had no choice but to comply. The police car slowly moved through the snowy roads. Finally at the police station, I was taken straight to an interrogation room. "Please explain what you were doing until now." "I was on a trip with my daughter. We returned in the evening." "Is there anyone who can verify your story?" "We stayed at an inn, so they should be able to confirm it." I tried to maintain a composed demeanor. Appearing too frantic could make me look guilty. "Was it usually your husband who took care of her?" "I have been the caregiver. My husband only took care of her these last 2 days." "Understood. We will look into that." "And what about my husband? How is he?" "Actually, he is currently missing." "Missing? Why?" Hearing that Tom was missing made me anxious. What could have possibly happened to him? "We are currently searching for him. We believe he will be found soon." "So what happens to me now?" "Unfortunately, you'll need to stay in the detention center for today." "That's outrageous. I haven't done anything. I understand, but we must consider all possibilities. You are still a suspect. If released, there's a chance you could tamper with the evidence. I felt like everything was going dark before my eyes. I was being treated like a complete criminal. Was I going to be taken to prison without even going home? In the end, I spent the day in the detention center. Naturally, I couldn't communicate with anyone outside. Was my mother-in-law okay? And what had happened to Kelly? All I could do was think about them, unable to sleep a wink. The next day, that detective came. "Mrs. Johnson, we've kept you waiting. Your innocence has been proven and you're being released." With those words, I was allowed outside. "Thank you so much. We were able to confirm with the inn where you stayed, and your daughter helped a lot too." I talked with him as we walked down the corridor. "Kelly did? Is that so?" "Yes, and from the care manager and neighbors' inquiries, we verified that you have been the caregiver all along." "Is that so? And my husband?" He hesitated before saying, "We haven't found him yet, but it's certain Tom was at the family home. Why he was left alone for so long remains unknown." Outside, Kelly and the care manager were waiting. "Kelly." "Mom, it felt like years had passed, though it was only a day. I heard from the police you worked hard to prove my innocence." Kelly nodded with tears in her eyes. "Yes, it was tough, but it's okay now. Grandma has also pulled through, but she can't be discharged for a while." Hearing that, I felt a deep sense of relief. As long as my mother-in-law was safe, that's all that mattered. We decided to go home for the time being. We got a ride home in the care manager's car and finally arrived. It seemed like Kelly had already brought the luggage from the family home. After saying goodbye to the care manager and organizing the luggage, I suddenly felt a wave of exhaustion. Really, what is he up to? It makes no sense why we went to the hot springs in the first place. I'm exhausted too. Let's take a rest. We both lay down, trying to sleep. It was just past 1 p.m. Having not slept at all the previous day, I quickly felt drowsy. Then the doorbell rang. I jumped up and checked the monitor, only to see that detective standing there. "Mrs. Johnson, I'm sorry to come unannounced." I immediately opened the front door. "What is it?" "Well, we have a report of a suspicious person believed to be Tom, and he appears to be carrying a weapon." Carrying a weapon. Upon hearing that, a chill ran down my spine. It's not confirmed yet, but we're taking precautions by placing officers around your house. Please avoid unnecessary outings and ensure your doors are locked. After saying that, he closed the door. I quickly explained the situation to Kelly, and we checked all the locks in the house. Fortunately, everything was secure, which gave us some relief. But with no idea when Tom might show up, I was plunged back into anxiety. Now every little noise or faint voice from outside made us jumpy. Naturally, we couldn't sleep under such circumstances, huddling together, holding our breath. "Hey Mom, it's all a mistake, right? Dad wouldn't do such a thing, right?" Of course he wouldn't, but let's be cautious. I didn't want to believe Tom could commit such an act, but we had to consider the possibility. I didn't understand what he wanted or why he framed me. I had no idea what he might do next, so we had to be careful. If that moment came, I had to ensure at least Kelly was safe. Holding her hand, I made that resolve. Time seemed to crawl by unusually slowly after that. It was when the day began to fade. I received a call on my smartphone from the police. "Hello, Mrs. Johnson, we've just found Tom safe and sound at a hotel. He's currently with the police giving his statement, so please rest assured." Oh, thank goodness. "Thank you." After saying just that, I hung up the phone. Did they find Dad? It seems so. Now we can finally get some rest. Feeling relieved, we were suddenly overwhelmed by fatigue and fell asleep. We slept till noon the next day. When I woke up, Kelly had already gone to school, leaving only a note behind. In the afternoon, the police called again, revealing the whole truth. When Tom was secured at the hotel, he was with Jessica Nathaniel. I had always thought she was just Tom's subordinate, but it turned out they had been having an affair for quite some time. Pretending to work on holidays and secretly meeting up was apparently a regular occurrence. While we were away on our trip, Tom had snuck Jessica into the family home. Trying to keep it a secret from his mother, they were enjoying the night together, but Tom made a significant error. He turned off the heating in his mother's room for ventilation and even opened a window. However, he got carried away with Jessica and completely forgot about it. His mother tried to close the window but couldn't manage due to her frailty and just endured it. By the time Tom remembered, she was already cold. Thinking she had passed away, he panicked. Seeing the message about us visiting the family home, he decided to pin the blame on me. After calling an ambulance and reporting to the police, he hurriedly packed up and fled with Jessica. That's why, when we arrived, the house was in disarray and the ambulance arrived just in time. Of course, such a flimsy plan couldn't succeed, and I was quickly released. Tom was trying to find a way out of this tight spot, but to no avail. Finally, the police caught up with them, and they both got arrested. The report of a suspicious person with a weapon turned out to be someone else, who in fact had no weapon. It was a troubling story, but I was truly relieved that we were safe. However, after hearing everything, I was deeply furious with Tom. Not for shirking the caregiving or having an affair, although those were unforgivable too. What I couldn't forgive was the danger he put his own mother in. I couldn't imagine living with someone who treated their own mother so carelessly. So I sought a lawyer and proceeded with the divorce. Since Tom and Jessica were arrested for criminal negligence resulting in death, the divorce proceedings went smoothly. I successfully divorced and claimed substantial compensation. Jessica's parents apologized and covered the compensation. In addition to the property division, I made sure Tom paid the remaining child support for Kelly's college expenses. Though the sentence for both was somewhat reduced since his mother survived, they still received suspended sentences. Naturally, they lost their jobs, and given their actions were now public knowledge, they couldn't show their faces for a while. Tom was even disowned by other relatives, not just his mother. His future seemed destined for solitude. So it all worked out, but I was very giddy because so much had happened in the past few months. His mother stabilized and was discharged, and we started living as three again. I hate to cause you trouble again. I'm quite stubborn, aren't I? She joked, showing reluctance towards being cared for. What are you talking about? You shouldn't worry about such things. But you're divorced now. Doesn't that make me a stranger? You shouldn't waste your time on me. Legally, maybe, but the debt of gratitude we owe you remains unchanged. We're family till the end, right, Kelly? Yes, of course. So Grandma, rely on us. Touched by our words, she cried with gratitude. Thank you, I'm indeed blessed to have lived this long. Life went on peacefully after that, with no major incidents. His mother was stable, and Kelly successfully entered college. We hoped this pleasant life would last forever, but it wasn't to be. Years later, my mother-in-law's health declined further, and on a warm spring day, she peacefully passed away. Her face was serene, making me hope I had repaid her kindness in some way. We conducted the funeral solemnly and bade her farewell without incident. Tom appeared at the funeral, but we didn't speak. If he's living safely somewhere, that's all that matters. While sorting through his mother's room, Kelly and I found a will she had secretly written. In it, she thanked us and gave us all her assets. Reading it, we quietly shed tears, grateful we could see her off properly. Though she's gone, we decided to live happily, also for her sake.